There seems to be an issue with your reservation.
No, there isn't.
Are you sure you booked for tonight?
You said there would be a room,
I have no record of that. There are no rooms available.
but we have a reservation.
I'm sorry, sir. I can't help you.
The front desk manager slid my key card back across the marble counter and said, "We don't have rooms for people like you." My daughter's overnight bag sat beside my wet shoes, dripping rainwater onto the lobby floor of my own hotel. Behind Olivia Grant, the reservation screen still showed my suite as available. 2 investors near the bar stopped talking. Above us, the security panel blinked red on the private elevator system I had personally ordered installed. Then she pressed the silent alarm under the desk. That was her first real mistake. The lobby went quiet in pieces. First the piano stopped. Then the bellman froze with one hand on a brass luggage cart. Then Lily, my 8-year-old daughter, tucked herself behind my coat and whispered, "Daddy, are we in trouble?" The rain beat hard against the glass doors. It made the whole entrance shimmer like a wall of broken silver. The hotel smelled of lemon polish, wet wool, and expensive flowers. Everything looked clean. Too clean. The kind of clean that hides what people do when they think no one important is watching. I kept my hand on Lily's shoulder. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice low, "we have a confirmed reservation." Olivia looked at my jacket. Not my face. My jacket. It was old. Dark. Still damp from the walk between the parking garage and the main entrance. Lily wore a pink hoodie with a tiny tear near the cuff. Her curls were frizzed from the rain. She had a fever earlier that evening, and all I wanted was to get her upstairs, run a warm bath, and let her sleep. Olivia tapped the counter with one painted nail. "This is a private luxury property," she said. "We reserve the right to refuse service." A young man behind her gave a short laugh. He tried to hide it by coughing. I looked past them. On the wall behind the desk was a gold plaque with the hotel name carved into it. Reed and Vale Grand. My last name sat there in polished letters, catching the chandelier light. No one at the counter noticed me looking at it. That made the room feel colder. "I'm not asking for special treatment," I said. "I'm asking for the room I booked." Olivia leaned closer. Her perfume cut through the scent of rain. "And I'm telling you," she said, "this hotel has standards." Lily's fingers tightened around mine. Something in her grip changed the air inside my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Something quieter. Something heavier. A security guard stepped away from the side wall. His shoes clicked once on the marble. Then again. Every step sounded rehearsed. "Sir," he said, "you need to leave." I turned slightly, just enough to see the camera dome above the concierge desk. Its small black lens stared down at us. Recording. Saving. Sending footage to a server room 2 floors below the kitchen, where every lobby incident was archived under my corporate compliance system. Olivia had forgotten about that part. Or maybe she had never cared. I took one slow breath. The private elevator behind the front desk hummed softly. It only responded to executive access cards, fire override codes, and the central control app on my phone. That elevator connected directly to the penthouse conference floor, where tomorrow morning's shareholder meeting was scheduled to begin at 9. The same meeting that could decide the future of this hotel group. I could feel my phone in my coat pocket. I did not touch it yet. Olivia looked at the security guard and raised her chin. "Escort him out before the gala guests arrive." The word escort landed wrong. Not because of me. Because Lily heard it. She looked down at her sneakers, as if being small could make her disappear. The old man sitting near the fireplace lowered his newspaper. I noticed him then. Gray suit. Silver cane. Sharp eyes. He had been watching from the moment we stepped inside. He looked at the plaque. Then he looked at me. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe? But he stayed silent. Olivia came around the counter now. That was another mistake. She stepped into the open lobby, where every guest could see her. Where every camera could hear her. where every polished surface threw back a reflection. People book online all the time, she said. That doesn't mean they belong here. The guard reached for my bag. I moved it behind my foot. Don't touch my daughter's things, I said. My voice did not rise. But the guard stopped. For the first time, Olivia's smile weakened. Only a little. The lobby doors opened again, and a cold sheet of rain blew in. A couple hurried inside under a black umbrella. They slowed when they saw us. The woman looked at Lily. Then at Olivia. Then at the guard's hand hovering near the bag. No one spoke. The silence became a witness. I pulled my phone from my pocket. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough for Olivia to see the screen wake in my palm. A small icon glowed at the bottom. Building control. Lily looked up at me. Daddy? I squeezed her hand once. It's okay, I said. But across the lobby, the private elevator stopped humming. And the red light above it turned solid. This was no longer about one room. I held the phone without unlocking it. The glowing building control icon was enough to catch one pair of eyes. Not Olivia's. The older gentleman by the fireplace slowly folded his newspaper. He did not stand. He simply watched. The security guard cleared his throat. His hand drifted away from Lily's bag. That tiny movement changed the balance in the lobby. Olivia noticed it immediately. Do your job, she said sharply. The guard hesitated for half a second. Half a second was longer than before. Lily leaned closer to my side. I could feel the warmth of her forehead through my sleeve. Her fever had not fully broken. The air conditioning blew cool air across the marble floor. She shivered once. I slipped off my jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. Stay close, I whispered. She nodded without looking up. Another family entered through the revolving door. Their luggage wheels rolled across the polished stone. They slowed when they saw security surrounding a father and his little girl. Nobody walked around us. They simply stopped. The lobby no longer sounded like a luxury hotel. Glasses no longer clinked. Quiet conversations disappeared. Even the piano player rested his hands above the keys. Olivia forced a professional smile toward the arriving guests. It lasted barely 2 seconds. Then she pointed toward me again. He is refusing to leave private property. The words echoed farther than she intended. A woman near the concierge frowned. A businessman lowered his phone after pretending not to listen. Across the room, the older gentleman reached for his cane. He still remained seated. I looked at the security camera above the entrance. A tiny blue light blinked every few seconds. Recording continued. Every word. Every gesture. Every decision. My compliance team insisted on redundant storage years ago. Most managers complained about the cost. I never changed the policy. Sometimes accountability depended on details measured in seconds. Olivia folded her arms. You have one last opportunity to leave voluntarily. I met her eyes for the first time since walking inside. Does your training manual allow you to deny shelter to a sick child? Her expression hardened. Do not try to manipulate this situation. I glanced toward Lily. She rubbed one tired eye and tried not to cough. A housekeeper pushing fresh towels out of the service hallway slowed her cart. She looked at Lily. Then at Olivia. Concern crossed her face before she quietly lowered her eyes again. Someone wanted to speak. No one did. That silence carried its own weight. My phone vibrated once. The screen lit up. Building operations, executive override available. I ignored the notification. Olivia noticed it anyway. Who keeps texting you? She asked. Someone who expects me upstairs by morning. It was the truth. Just not the truth she imagined. She gave a dry laugh. That is not happening tonight. The older gentleman finally rose from his chair. His cane tapped softly against the marble. Once. Twice. He walked only a few feet before stopping beside a column. Close enough to hear every word. far enough to avoid becoming part of the argument. His attention never left my face. The bell captain approached Olivia and quietly whispered something. She dismissed him with a wave before he finished speaking. Whatever he had noticed, she refused to hear it. That decision settled heavily over the lobby. Another vibration reached my pocket. This time the notification appeared across the top of my screen. Executive Board arrival updated, 8 hours early. I read it without changing my expression. Tomorrow's meeting was no longer tomorrow. The board was already on the way. Olivia stepped closer until only the counter separated us. "If you are waiting for someone important to rescue you," she said, "you are wasting everyone's time." Behind her, the digital clock above the concierge desk quietly changed to 8:03 p.m. Outside, headlights swept across the rain-soaked entrance as a line of black SUVs slowly turned beneath the hotel canopy. The first black SUV came to a smooth stop beneath the covered entrance. Then a second one followed. Rain rolled off their glossy roofs in silver sheets. The valet staff straightened almost at once. They recognized the executive fleet before anyone else did. Olivia noticed the vehicles too. She glanced toward the front doors, then back at me. Confidence returned to her face. She assumed important guests were arriving. She smiled toward the entrance without realizing she had already become the center of attention. The doorman hurried outside with a large umbrella. Cold air drifted into the lobby each time the revolving door turned. Lily rested her head against my arm. Her breathing was slow. Her cheeks were still warm. I brushed a damp curl away from her forehead. "We will get you somewhere warm soon," I said quietly. She gave a tired nod. The older gentleman remained beside the stone column. He adjusted his glasses and looked toward the arriving vehicles. Something about his posture changed. He stood straighter now. His eyes moved from the entrance to me again, as though two separate pieces of the same puzzle had finally begun to connect. The bell captain shifted uneasily beside the luggage carts. He stepped closer to Olivia once more. "Manager Grant," he whispered, "perhaps we should verify the reservation again." She did not even look at him. "I already made my decision." Her answer carried across the polished lobby. Several guests exchanged silent looks. Decisions sounded different when an audience heard them. My phone vibrated again. Another notification appeared. Executive arrival confirmed. Estimated lobby entry, 2 minutes. I slipped the phone back into my pocket. I still did not unlock it. Olivia folded both hands neatly in front of her. "You have delayed operations long enough." I looked around the lobby. Fresh flowers stood in crystal vases beside the seating area. Soft jazz floated from hidden ceiling speakers now that the pianist had quietly resumed playing. The scent of roasted coffee drifted from the lounge beyond the marble staircase. Everything reflected the image our company spent years building. Hospitality. Dignity. Respect. Those words were carved into employee training manuals. They were framed in conference rooms. They appeared in recruiting videos. Yet they meant nothing if they disappeared the moment a guest looked ordinary. A young front desk trainee stood several feet behind Olivia. She could not have been older than 22. She looked frightened. Not of me. Of the situation. Twice she opened her mouth to speak. Twice she stopped herself. She understood something was wrong. She simply did not have the authority to interrupt. I remembered being that young once. Watching leaders make choices that shaped everyone standing nearby. Leadership was never loud. It revealed itself in moments exactly like this. The revolving door turned again. 3 men in tailored suits entered the lobby. They carried no luggage. Their polished shoes barely made a sound across the marble. Every employee near the entrance greeted them automatically. "Good evening, gentlemen." None of the 3 men answered. Instead, each scanned the lobby until their eyes settled on me. They slowed immediately. Olivia noticed their hesitation. She stepped toward them with practiced confidence. "Welcome to Reed and Vale Grand," she said brightly. "I sincerely apologize for the disturbance. We are handling an issue with an unauthorized visitor." The tallest executive looked at me. Then at Lily. Finally, he looked back at Olivia. His expression remained unreadable. Unauthorized? He repeated. Yes, Olivia answered. Security is escorting him out. The security guard shifted his weight but remained where he was. He had stopped reaching toward my belongings several minutes ago. He simply waited. The oldest of the three executives studied my face for another long second. Recognition flashed across his eyes before he carefully hid it. He understood exactly who I was. So did the two men standing beside him. Yet none of them spoke my name. Not yet. They understood something else. Every camera in the lobby was still recording. Every guest had become a witness. Every employee was revealing who they truly were before anyone from the board needed to ask a single question. The tallest executive removed his raincoat slowly. Water dripped onto the marble beside his shoes. He looked toward Olivia one final time. Then he asked a question that changed the silence around us. Manager Grant, who approved your decision? Olivia lifted her chin without the slightest hesitation. I approved it, she answered. Her voice carried across the lobby with practiced confidence. As acting front desk manager, I am responsible for protecting this property and our guests. The tallest executive studied her for a long moment. He did not interrupt. He simply waited. That silence invited her to keep talking. She accepted the invitation. Our standards exist for a reason, she continued. Sometimes difficult decisions must be made before situations become problems. The older gentleman by the columns slowly lowered his gaze. He looked disappointed rather than surprised. I remained beside Lily. She leaned against me, wrapped in my damp jacket. I could hear the quiet hum of the air vents above us. Somewhere behind the restaurant doors, silverware clinked against porcelain. Dinner service continued as though nothing unusual was happening. Yet almost every employee within sight had stopped pretending not to watch. The tallest executive folded his raincoat over one arm. Did this guest threaten anyone? He asked. Olivia answered immediately. No. Did he damage hotel property? No. Did he disrupt another guest? She hesitated. His refusal to leave has created a disruption. The executive nodded once. So the disruption began after your decision. Olivia blinked. Excuse me? It is a simple question. She shifted her weight. I acted according to my judgment. Behind her, the young trainee lowered her eyes toward the keyboard. Her fingers rested above the reservation system without touching it. I noticed the reservation screen reflected faintly in the polished marble behind the counter. My confirmation number was still open. My suite still showed ready. Nothing about the reservation had changed. Only the person reading it had. Lily tugged gently on my sleeve. Daddy, she whispered. Can we go home? Her small voice reached farther than she intended. Several guests turned toward her. The woman who had entered with the umbrella pressed her lips together. She looked away for a moment, then quietly removed a sealed bottle of water from her handbag. She walked over slowly and knelt beside Lily. Sweetheart, she said softly, would you like some water? Lily looked at me before accepting it. I smiled once. Say thank you. Thank you, she whispered. The woman nodded and returned to her husband without another word. Kindness often arrived without announcements. Olivia watched the exchange with growing discomfort. Control was slipping away from her, not because anyone challenged her authority, but because ordinary people had begun making their own judgments. The bell captain stepped closer again. This time his voice was barely above a whisper. Manager Grant, Corporate Human Resources requires accommodation review before refusing a confirmed reservation. She turned sharply toward him. I know the policy. Then perhaps that will be enough. He stepped back immediately. The words hung in the air anyway. Policy. Review. Confirmed reservation. Each one landed like another stone. The tallest executive glanced toward the security guard. Officer, has this gentleman resisted any instructions? The guard swallowed. No, sir. Has he raised his voice? No, sir. Has he threatened anyone? No, sir. The guard looked toward me for a brief second before answering the final question. He has been respectful the entire time. Another layer of silence settled over the lobby. Even Olivia seemed to hear it now. She crossed her arms more tightly. Respect does not change the fact that he does not belong here. I finally spoke. What exactly convinced you of that? She looked directly at me. Experience. I nodded slowly. Not evidence? She said nothing. The older gentleman took another careful step forward. His cane tapped softly against the marble floor. Young lady, he said in a calm voice, experience without evidence often becomes prejudice. Olivia stared at him, surprised that anyone had finally spoken aloud. Before she could respond, the revolving doors turned once more. 2 additional executives entered with leather portfolios tucked beneath their arms. They paused after taking in the scene. One looked toward the tallest executive and quietly asked, "Has the chairman arrived yet?" The question floated through the lobby, and several faces changed at once. The question lingered in the air. "Has the chairman arrived yet?" No one answered immediately. Every executive who had just entered instinctively looked toward the entrance instead of toward the front desk. Olivia followed their gaze. She smoothed the front of her blazer and forced another professional smile. "Not yet," she replied before anyone else could speak. "We are preparing for tomorrow's meeting." The tallest executive turned his eyes back to her. "Tomorrow?" he asked calmly. "Yes." He checked his watch. "That schedule changed this afternoon." Olivia frowned. "I was not informed." "That is unfortunate." His answer was quiet. It carried no anger. Somehow that made it heavier. The trainee behind the desk looked up in surprise. She quickly opened another screen on her computer. Her eyes moved from one line to another. Then her expression changed. She slowly raised her hand. "Manager Grant." Olivia did not turn around. "Not now. It is about the executive calendar." "I said not now." The trainee lowered her hand again. Her shoulders sank. Another opportunity disappeared. I watched without saying a word. Leadership often revealed itself through the voices it refused to hear. Lily shifted beside me. She finished the bottle of water and handed it back to me. "Thank you," she whispered, looking toward the woman who had offered it. The woman smiled warmly. Her husband nodded at me with quiet respect. Small moments like that reminded me why this company had existed in the first place. Hospitality was never about marble floors or crystal chandeliers. It lived inside ordinary choices made by ordinary people. The lobby doors opened again. This time a hotel shuttle driver hurried inside carrying a leather briefcase. His uniform was damp from the rain. "I found this in the executive vehicle." He called toward the arriving board members. One of the executives accepted the case and thanked him personally. The shuttle driver smiled, nodded, and started walking away. Before he reached the employee hallway, he noticed me. His steps slowed. Recognition crossed his face for only an instant. He quickly looked down and continued walking without speaking. He understood the situation better than most people in the room. Olivia never noticed. Her attention remained fixed on the executives. "Gentlemen," she said, "once security clears this area, we will have refreshments prepared in the executive lounge." The oldest executive asked, "Security? Are you expecting danger?" "No." "Then why are they clearing the lobby?" Olivia hesitated again. "We must maintain our image." The older gentleman with the silver cane let out the faintest sigh. "Image without character rarely lasts," he said. A few nearby guests quietly nodded. Olivia looked increasingly uncomfortable. She was losing the room one sentence at a time. Her authority still existed on paper. Her credibility had begun slipping away. The security guard adjusted the radio clip to his shoulder. A voice crackled through the speaker. "Main lobby, please confirm executive arrival status." He answered without taking his eyes off the executives. Executive team has arrived. A short pause followed. Then another voice came through more clearly. Chairman's security detail is entering the property now. The guard blinked. Several executives exchanged quick glances. Olivia straightened immediately. Excellent, she said. Please prepare the executive entrance. The tallest executive slowly shook his head. There will be no executive entrance tonight. Olivia looked confused. Sir? The chairman specifically requested the main lobby. Those words spread across the marble room like ripples across still water. Employees looked toward the front doors. Guests quietly stepped aside. Even the pianist stopped playing once more. Outside, another line of headlights appeared through the rain. Unlike the earlier vehicles, these moved slowly and with deliberate spacing. Reflections danced across the wet pavement beneath the entrance canopy. I reached into my pocket and unlocked my phone for the first time. The building control application opened automatically. A single notification appeared across the screen. Chairman Arrival Protocol awaiting authorization. My thumb rested above the approval button. I did not press it yet. Someone finally noticed what was glowing in my hand. The glow from my phone reflected faintly across the polished marble counter. It lasted only a second. It was long enough. The young trainee behind the desk noticed the screen first. Her eyes widened. She leaned forward as if she had recognized something impossible. Then she looked at the building control icon again. She swallowed but said nothing. Olivia caught the movement. What is it now? She asked impatiently. The trainee hesitated. Nothing, Manager Grant. Olivia dismissed her with a wave. Then stay focused. I lowered the phone without pressing the authorization button. The notification remained waiting. Chairman Arrival Protocol awaiting authorization. Outside, rain continued tapping against the glass like steady fingers. Headlights washed across the lobby walls before fading away again. Lily looked up at me. Daddy, are those more guests? She asked quietly. Yes, I answered. Some important people are arriving. She nodded and rested her head against my arm once more. Her breathing had become steadier. The bottle of water sat empty beside her shoes. Across the lobby, the older gentleman slowly approached until he stood only a few feet away. Young man, he said softly, your daughter needs rest. I know. You have shown remarkable patience. I smiled politely. Sometimes patience tells a clearer story than anger. He looked at me carefully. A faint smile touched the corner of his mouth before disappearing. He understood exactly what I meant. The executives remained silent. None of them stepped forward. None of them corrected Olivia. Not yet. They were watching every decision unfold naturally. They knew that once truth entered the room, there would be no putting it back. The security guard's radio crackled again. Chairman's security has reached the front entrance. Every employee instinctively looked toward the revolving doors. Olivia straightened her blazer again. She glanced toward the concierge mirror to check her appearance. Then she smiled confidently, believing the evening was about to recover. Everyone back to your stations, she instructed. We will welcome the chairman properly. No one moved immediately. The bell captain remained where he was. The housekeeper still stood beside her cart. Even the valet inside the doorway hesitated. Something had shifted. Authority no longer sounded convincing. It merely sounded loud. One of the executives finally spoke. Manager Grant. Yes, sir? Before the chairman enters, I have one question. Of course. Has anyone reviewed the incident footage? Olivia looked surprised. There has not been time. There has been more than enough time. She glanced toward the security guard. Please retrieve the footage after we finish assisting the chairman. The guard remained still. The recording is already archived automatically, he answered. Corporate servers receive copies in real time. Olivia turned slowly toward him. Why did nobody tell me that? The guard looked uncomfortable. It has always worked that way. Another quiet settled over the lobby. The trainee lowered her eyes again. She knew the answer. So did everyone who had completed executive compliance training. Olivia had simply forgotten. Or ignored it. I looked toward the camera above the concierge desk. Its blue light continued blinking. Every second became another permanent record. Every word found its place inside the archive. The older gentleman rested both hands on the top of his silver cane. Records have curious memories, he murmured. People often trust their own version until the recording speaks. A faint electronic chime echoed through the lobby. It came from the elevator control panel behind the front desk. Every executive recognized the sound immediately. Olivia frowned. Why did the executive elevator unlock? She asked. No one answered her. My phone vibrated once more. The message on the screen changed. Manual authorization timeout, 30 seconds remaining. I finally raised my thumb toward the display. Olivia noticed the movement. Her eyes narrowed. What exactly is on your phone? She demanded. I looked at her calmly. Something that cannot wait much longer. Before she could respond, every display screen in the lobby briefly faded to black. The hotel logo appeared. Then a single line of text slowly replaced it. Awaiting chairman arrival authorization. I looked at the lobby display without changing my expression. Every screen carried the same message. Awaiting chairman arrival authorization. The words glowed against a dark background. Guests looked from the displays to the front desk. Employees did the same. The quiet became almost tangible. Olivia stared at the nearest screen. Who changed that? She demanded. No one answered. The young trainee slowly raised one trembling hand. Manager Grant, she said softly. Those displays only receive commands from corporate building control. Olivia frowned. Then call information technology. Information technology cannot override executive protocols. Another sentence landed harder than the last. The tallest executive folded his hands behind his back. He watched Olivia instead of the screens. Do you still believe this is an ordinary guest? He asked. Olivia forced a short laugh. Someone is obviously playing a prank. The older gentleman gently shook his head. Large systems rarely play jokes. I glanced at the countdown on my phone. 24 seconds remained. I still did not touch the authorization button. Lily tugged lightly at my sleeve. Daddy, everybody keeps looking at us. I crouched beside her until we were eye level. Sometimes people need a little time to understand what they are seeing. She smiled faintly. Are we still sleeping here tonight? I certainly hope so. She reached into her backpack and pulled out the small stuffed bear she carried everywhere. She hugged it against her chest and rested quietly beside me. The simple sight softened several faces around the lobby. A housekeeper disappeared briefly into the employee hallway. She returned carrying a folded blanket. Without asking permission from anyone, she walked over and draped it gently across Lily's shoulders. This should keep you warm, she said kindly. Lily looked at me. I nodded. Thank you, ma'am, Lily replied. The housekeeper smiled before returning to her cart. Olivia watched the exchange with visible frustration. Her instructions no longer carried the same force. Employees had begun following their own conscience instead of her voice. The security guard's radio crackled once again. Chairman Detail has reached the main entrance perimeter. A second voice followed immediately. Awaiting building authorization. Every executive heard those words. None of them reacted with surprise. Olivia stepped toward the security guard. Authorize the entrance. He looked genuinely uncomfortable. I cannot. Why not? Only one executive credential can release the protocol. She looked around the lobby. Which executive? No one answered. The trainee quietly turned her monitor slightly toward herself. Her eyes scanned another page. Then she whispered almost to herself. Only the founding chairman. She covered her mouth the moment the words escaped. Olivia turned sharply. What did you just say? The trainee swallowed. That is what the system says. Olivia walked behind the counter and leaned toward the monitor. Her eyes moved quickly across the screen. Color slowly drained from her face. She read the same line twice. Executive authorization required. Founding chairman credential only. She looked back at me almost involuntarily. Her confidence cracked for the first time. Not completely. Just enough for doubt to appear. The tallest executive noticed it. Manager Grant, he asked calmly, have you verified this gentleman's identity at any point tonight? She hesitated. His appearance spoke for itself. The older gentleman closed his eyes briefly. Appearances have ruined many promising careers. Rain continued sliding down the enormous windows. The chandelier light shimmered through the water, casting soft patterns across the marble floor. Somewhere in the restaurant, a child laughed for a moment before falling quiet again. The contrast felt strangely peaceful. My phone vibrated once more. 15 seconds remained. A soft tone echoed from the executive elevator. Its doors unlocked but did not open. The entire lobby seemed to hold a single breath. Even Olivia stopped speaking. Then every employee identification badge clipped to their uniforms vibrated at exactly the same moment. Every employee badge vibrated with the same soft pulse. Heads turned across the lobby almost in unison. Some employees instinctively looked down at their name tags. Others reached for the small devices clipped beside them. The notification was identical on every screen. Executive arrival protocol active. Report to assigned positions. Nobody spoke for several seconds. The message carried more authority than any manager in the building. Olivia forced herself to recover. Everyone remain calm, she said. Continue following my instructions. Her voice sounded different now. It no longer filled the room. It barely reached the people standing closest to her. The bell captain looked at his badge again before quietly taking his assigned place near the entrance. The concierge straightened the guest directory without being asked. The valet outside adjusted the arrival lane. None of them looked toward Olivia for approval. They followed the protocol they had practiced for years. Lily looked around the lobby with sleepy eyes. Daddy, why are they all moving? She asked. I smiled gently. Because everyone finally knows something important is about to happen. She leaned against my shoulder again. The blanket around her smelled faintly of fresh cotton and lavender detergent. She closed her eyes for a moment, holding her stuffed bear close. The older gentleman watched her with quiet kindness. She trusts you completely, he said. She has every reason to, I answered. He nodded slowly. That is earned, not given. My phone displayed 10 seconds remaining. The authorization button glowed softly beneath my thumb. I still waited. The tallest executive stepped a little closer. His polished shoes stopped several feet in front of me. He lowered his voice enough that only those nearest could hear. Sir, the protocol will expire shortly. I looked at him. I know. He gave a respectful nod and stepped back without another word. Olivia noticed the exchange. Her eyes moved from his face to mine. Doubt grew stronger. She looked toward the trainee. Tell me exactly what that system is showing. The young woman took a careful breath. It says the arrival sequence cannot continue until the founding chairman authorizes building access. Can another executive override it? No. Can corporate? No. Can security? No. The trainee paused before speaking again. The protocol was designed that way to protect the company from unauthorized access at the highest level. Olivia stared silently at the monitor. Every answer closed another door. The security guard removed his cap for a moment and rubbed his forehead. Manager Grant, he said quietly, perhaps we should slow down. She looked at him in disbelief. You think I handled this incorrectly? He chose his words carefully. I think we may not understand the whole situation. Across the lobby, guests remained remarkably still. Several had quietly placed their phones back into their pockets. They no longer seemed interested in recording anything. They were simply watching history unfold. Rain continued falling outside. Water streamed down the glass walls like thin ribbons. The black SUVs remained parked beneath the entrance canopy. Their engines idled almost silently. A driver opened one rear door and stood waiting. No passenger stepped out. Not yet. The countdown reached 5 seconds. A soft tone echoed from my phone. 4. The executive elevator lights brightened. 3. The lobby displays changed from white to gold. 2. The chandelier lights dimmed slightly before returning to full brightness. 1. I placed my thumb gently on the authorization button. The confirmation circle completed almost instantly. A calm electronic voice filled the lobby. Founding Chairman authorization confirmed. Welcome home, Mr. Reed. The words settled over the room more quietly than anyone expected. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed loudly. Even the rain seemed farther away. Olivia's eyes met mine, and for the first time that evening, she stopped looking at my clothes. The electronic voice faded, but the silence remained. Nobody rushed forward. Nobody spoke my name. The lobby simply stood still, as though the building itself needed a moment to catch up with the truth. Olivia looked from me to the nearest display, then back again. Her lips parted, but no words came. The trainee slowly stepped away from the computer. She looked as though she wanted to apologize even though she had done nothing wrong. The tallest executive finally broke the silence. He walked toward me with measured steps and stopped an arm's length away. Then he extended his hand. Good evening, Mr. Reed, he said. The board has been waiting for your arrival. I shook his hand. Good evening, Daniel. His formal expression softened slightly. I am sorry your evening began this way. So am I. Lily looked up at him. Hello? Daniel smiled warmly. Hello, Miss Reed. We are very happy to see you. She smiled back before resting against my side again. The simple exchange seemed to remind everyone that this had never been about corporate titles. It had always been about how a father and his daughter had been treated. One by one, the remaining executives approached. Each greeted me with quiet respect. None of them exaggerated the moment. None of them performed for the crowd. Their calm professionalism carried more weight than applause ever could. The older gentleman with the silver cane stepped forward last. He extended his hand with a gentle smile. Arthur Whitmore, he said. Retired hospitality professor. I invested in this company 15 years ago because I believed in your principles. I accepted his hand gratefully. Thank you for believing in them. He glanced briefly toward Olivia. Tonight those principles were tested. Yes, I replied. That is why I came through the front door. His eyes narrowed with understanding. You wanted to see the culture instead of the presentation. Culture always reveals itself before the meeting begins. Behind us, the executive elevator doors slid open with a soft chime. No one entered. The elevator simply waited. Olivia finally found her voice. It came out quietly, almost uncertain. Mr. Reed. She stopped. She had no prepared script for this moment. The title she had spoken so naturally to others suddenly felt unfamiliar. I turned toward her without anger. She lowered her eyes for the first time that evening. I did not know. That is true, I answered. You did not. She nodded slowly. I thought. Her sentence faded away. You made a decision before asking a single question, I said gently. Yes. You judged whether someone belonged before checking whether they had a reservation. Her shoulders dropped. Yes. And before noticing the child standing beside him. Olivia looked toward Lily. Regret crossed her face more clearly than fear. Lily hugged her stuffed bear tighter but remained quiet. The housekeeper who had offered the blanket gently adjusted it around Lily's shoulders again. That small act caught my attention more than anything else happening in the lobby. Kindness required no title. Daniel looked toward the front desk. Please secure every recording from this evening, he instructed calmly. No edits. No copies removed. Preserve everything exactly as captured. The security guard nodded immediately. Already completed, sir. Corporate Archive received the files in real time. Daniel glanced back at me. Would you like us to begin the executive meeting now? I looked around the lobby one more time. Employees stood silently beside their stations. Guests watched with respectful distance. Rain still shimmered beyond the glass entrance. No, I said. There is something more important to do first. Every face turned toward me again. Even Olivia lifted her eyes. The elevator doors remained open, waiting for whatever came next. I looked at Daniel before answering. Please ask everyone to remain exactly where they are for a few more minutes. He nodded immediately. You heard Mr. Reed, he said calmly. No one leaves the lobby. There was no hesitation. Executives remained where they stood. Employees stayed at their stations. Even the guests quietly accepted the unexpected pause. The lobby felt different now. It no longer resembled a hotel waiting for distinguished visitors. It felt like a classroom moments before an important lesson began. I turned toward Lily. Would you like to sit down for a minute? She nodded sleepily. The older gentleman, Arthur Whitmore, gently pulled a nearby armchair closer. This one is warmer, he said kindly. Thank you, Lily replied. She climbed into the chair with her blanket and stuffed bear. Within seconds she looked more comfortable. The housekeeper quietly returned with a cup of warm herbal tea. It is caffeine-free, she said softly. It may help her relax. I accepted it with genuine gratitude. Thank you for seeing her. The woman smiled. Every child should be seen. Those 6 words settled deeply inside me. I looked around the lobby once more. That sentence, I said quietly, is exactly why this company exists. Several employees lowered their eyes. Olivia remained motionless behind the front desk. She listened without interrupting. I walked slowly toward the center of the marble floor. My footsteps echoed gently beneath the high ceiling. Every camera still followed the same wide angle. Every recording continued. Years ago, I said, we wrote one sentence before we designed a single room. Nobody spoke. We did not begin with architecture. We began with a promise. The concierge looked toward the gold plaque behind the desk. The bell captain folded his hands respectfully. Even the security guard stood a little straighter. That promise was simple. Every guest deserves dignity before they deserve luxury. The words lingered across the quiet room. Luxury is easy to purchase, I continued. Dignity is something we choose to give. Arthur nodded slowly. Daniel glanced toward several board members, who silently acknowledged the statement. They had heard those words before. Tonight they sounded different. I looked toward the young trainee. What is your name? She seemed startled. Emily, sir. Emily, when you saw the reservation, what did you want to do? She took a careful breath. I wanted to verify it again. Why did you stop? She looked briefly toward Olivia before answering. I thought speaking might make things worse. I smiled gently. Sometimes silence makes things worse. Emily nodded slowly. I turned toward the security guard. Officer, why did you stop reaching for my bag? He answered honestly. Because your daughter looked frightened. It did not feel right anymore. Thank you for listening to your conscience. His shoulders relaxed slightly. Then I looked at the housekeeper. Why did you bring Lily a blanket? She answered without hesitation. She was cold. Did anyone instruct you? No, sir. Then thank you for honoring the company better than any handbook could. Several employees quietly looked toward her with newfound respect. Olivia watched each conversation unfold. Her expression softened with every answer. She finally understood that no one being recognized had acted because of my title. They had acted because of compassion. I slowly faced her. Manager Grant? Yes, Mr. Reed. Her voice was almost a whisper. Tonight was never a test of whether you recognized me. She closed her eyes briefly. I understand. It was a test of whether you recognize humanity before status. Tears gathered in her eyes, but she remained composed. She nodded once. I failed. The room stayed silent. Nobody rushed to comfort her. Nobody celebrated her mistake. The lesson belonged to everyone standing there. Daniel quietly stepped beside me. The board is ready whenever you are. I looked toward the executive elevator, then back at the employees filling the lobby. The meeting can wait, I said. One conversation still matters more. Olivia stood quietly behind the front desk. She no longer searched for an explanation that would protect her decision. She simply faced it. I walked toward the counter at an unhurried pace. The marble reflected the chandelier above us. Rain still traced slow lines across the tall windows. Lily looked up from the armchair. She was smiling faintly now, wrapped in the blanket the housekeeper had offered. That simple picture reminded me why this conversation mattered. Manager Grant, I said, please come around the desk. She obeyed without hesitation. Every employee watched in respectful silence. Daniel remained beside the executive team. Arthur rested both hands on his silver cane. No one interrupted. Olivia stopped a few feet in front of me. Mr. Reed, she said softly, I owe you and your daughter an apology. I nodded once. You do. She turned toward Lily first. Miss Reed, I am truly sorry that I made you feel unwelcome. You deserved kindness the moment you walked through these doors. Lily looked at me before answering. Thank you? Her quiet voice carried farther than she realized. Olivia then looked back at me. I judged you before I learned anything about you. I ignored my own team. I ignored our policies. Most importantly, I ignored your humanity. She took a slow breath. There is no excuse for that. The lobby remained still. Nobody applauded. Nobody whispered. The apology stood on its own. I let a few seconds pass before speaking. Owning a mistake is difficult, I said. Learning from it is even harder. She nodded. I am prepared to accept whatever decision you make. I looked toward the employees gathered around us. Tonight is not only about one decision. Every person here has learned something. I turned to Emily. You wanted to verify the reservation. She nodded. Next time, speak. She answered. I will. I looked toward the security guard. You listen to your conscience before your fear. He lowered his head respectfully. I will keep doing that. I thanked the housekeeper once more for caring for Lily without being asked. She smiled modestly and returned to her cart. Daniel quietly observed every exchange. Arthur's expression softened. The atmosphere no longer felt tense. It felt honest. I faced Olivia again. Respect cannot depend on clothing, appearance, or assumptions, I said. It has to be the first service we offer every guest. She answered without hesitation. I understand now. I looked around the lobby one final time. Then let tonight become part of how this company teaches every new employee. Several executives exchanged thoughtful glances. Daniel gave a slow nod. We can make that happen. The executive elevator remained open behind us, waiting in complete silence. One decision still remained. Daniel waited quietly beside the executive elevator. The board members remained where they were. No one appeared impatient. The meeting upstairs had already become less important than the lesson unfolding below. I looked at Olivia for a long moment before speaking. Our company has policies for performance, I said. But character is measured differently. She listened without lifting her eyes. Tonight you made a serious mistake. The recording will become part of the official review. That process will follow our employment policies exactly as it would for anyone else. She nodded slowly. I understand. There was no argument in her voice now. Only acceptance. I turned toward the employees gathered throughout the lobby. I also want every person here to understand something. Several housekeepers stepped closer. The concierge folded his hands in front of him. Even the guests remained respectfully silent. This company was never built so people could feel important inside beautiful buildings. I continued. It was built so strangers could feel safe the moment they walked through the door. Arthur smiled faintly. Daniel quietly lowered his head in agreement. Emily looked as though she would remember every word for years. I walked toward Lily. She reached for my hand as soon as I came close. Her fingers were warmer now. The tea had helped. The blanket rested neatly across her lap. "Ready to go upstairs?" I asked. She smiled. "Can my bear come too?" I laughed softly. "He has a reservation too." A few gentle smiles appeared around the lobby. The tension eased for the first time that evening. I looked back toward the housekeeper who had cared for Lily. "May I ask your name?" She looked surprised. "Angela, sir." "Angela, thank you. You reminded everyone here what hospitality looks like." She placed one hand over her heart. "I only did what I hoped someone would do for my own family." "Then you honored the values of this company." I turned toward Emily. "Beginning tomorrow, I would like you to spend 1 week with our guest experience team before returning to the front desk." Her eyes widened. "Really? You noticed something was wrong. Next time, trust your judgment and speak with respect." "I will, sir." Daniel made a quick note inside his portfolio. The security guard straightened his uniform. "Mr. Reed," he said, "I should have asked more questions before assuming anything." "You corrected yourself before causing greater harm," I answered. "Keep listening to that instinct." He nodded gratefully. Finally, I faced Olivia once more. "Whatever the review concludes, I hope tonight changes more than one career." She looked up. "It already has." Her voice was steady now. "I spent years believing luxury meant protecting appearances. Tonight I learned it begins with protecting people." I gave a small nod. "That lesson is worth keeping." Daniel stepped toward the elevator and pressed the open button again. The doors slid apart with a quiet chime. Warm light spilled into the lobby. The board members waited until Lily stood beside me before anyone moved. No one tried to enter first. No one hurried ahead. Arthur smiled at Lily. "After you, young lady." She looked at me for permission. I nodded. Holding my hand and carrying her stuffed bear, she stepped toward the elevator with a sleepy smile. The rest of us followed in silence as the doors waited open. The elevator doors closed with a gentle whisper. The soft hum of the ascent replaced the sounds of the lobby below. Lily leaned against my shoulder, her stuffed bear tucked beneath one arm. Before we reached the executive floor, her eyes had already closed. The long evening had finally caught up with her. I brushed a loose curl away from her forehead and smiled. She looked peaceful. That mattered more than anything waiting upstairs. The elevator opened onto the conference level. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Rain still shimmered across the skyline, turning every streetlight into long ribbons of gold. The board members stepped aside instead of walking ahead. Daniel quietly held the conference room door open, but I remained where I was. "Let us take Lily to her room first," I said. No one objected. We walked together down the quiet hallway. Thick carpets softened every footstep. Warm lights reflected against polished wood panels. The suite door unlocked with a soft click. Inside, the room smelled faintly of cedar and fresh linen. Angela had already arranged for warm milk, fresh towels, and children's medicine to be delivered. I looked at Daniel. "Thank you?" He smiled. "Angela made the request before anyone asked?" I nodded. "That does not surprise me." I gently placed Lily beneath the blankets. She never opened her eyes. Her small hand rested on the stuffed bear, as though it belonged there. I stood beside the bed for a few quiet moments. Every parent knows that silence. It is the moment when the world finally slows enough to remember what truly matters. Arthur stopped beside the doorway without speaking. He removed his glasses and quietly looked toward the sleeping child. "She will remember how you protected her," he said softly. I looked at Lily again. "I hope she remembers something else." Arthur waited. "I hope she remembers that strangers chose kindness when it mattered." He smiled gently. "That is how communities are built." We stepped back into the hallway and closed the suite door quietly behind us. Only then did we enter the executive conference room. Nobody rushed toward the head of the table. Nobody reached for a presentation. The large display screen still showed tomorrow's agenda. Daniel turned it off. The blank screen reflected everyone equally. I remained standing instead of taking my chair. Tonight's first agenda item has already been completed, I said. We discovered the truth about our culture. Several board members nodded thoughtfully. Buildings grow old, I continued. Furniture wears out. Markets change. The only thing guests remember for decades is how another human being made them feel. No one disagreed. Daniel placed a small notebook in front of him. I recommend we include tonight's recording in future leadership training. So do I, Arthur said. Not because someone failed, but because others quietly chose compassion. I smiled. That is exactly the lesson. Rain finally began to ease outside. Clouds drifted apart, revealing a few stars above the city. Their reflections shimmered across the glass walls surrounding the room. The tension that had filled the evening slowly gave way to something steadier. Hope. Before adjourning the meeting, I looked around the table one final time. Never build a company where respect depends on appearance, I said. Build one where dignity arrives before the room key. The board remained silent for a moment. Then Daniel quietly closed his notebook. Down the hallway, beyond the conference room, my daughter slept peacefully inside the hotel that had finally remembered its own purpose.
Thank you so much for this.
Of course. Rest well.